The grand ballroom of Buckingham Palace gleamed under the light of crystal chandeliers. Gold-framed mirrors reflected the faces of Britain's most influential people. Cabinet ministers adjusted their ties nervously. Duchesses whispered behind gloved hands. Everyone waited for King Charles III to make his announcement about the future of the monarchy. Kate Middleton stood near the window, her emerald green gown catching the afternoon light. She kept her hands folded calmly, though her heart raced. Across the room, Queen Camilla sat on a velvet chair, wearing the sapphire tiara that once belonged to the Queen Mother. She looked confident, almost triumphant. For weeks, palace insiders had whispered about a power struggle between the two women. Today, the king would settle it once and for all. The tension had been building for months. Ever since Charles became king, questions swirled about the roles of the royal women. Camilla, as queen consort, expected to take charge of major royal duties. She had waited decades for this position. But Kate, the Princess of Wales, had captured the public's heart. She represented the future of the monarchy. Young mothers saw themselves in her. Fashion designers copied her style. Charities flourished under her patronage. The rivalry started subtly. At state dinners, both women would arrive in similar colored gowns. During royal tours, their schedules mysteriously overlapped. British newspapers noticed every detail. They analyzed who stood where in official photographs. They counted how many times the king spoke to each woman at public events. The palace tried to present unity, but staff members knew the truth. Two strong women competed for influence in the royal household. William noticed the strain on his wife. Kate would return from palace meetings with tight shoulders and forced smiles. She never complained directly, but he saw how Camilla's comments stung. The queen consort had a way of making suggestions that sounded like orders. She would schedule important events without consulting Kate. She would change charity plans at the last minute. Most painful of all, she would make subtle references to Kate's middle-class background. The British public sensed the tension too. Opinion polls showed interesting results. Older royalists supported Camilla, respecting her long relationship with Charles. But younger generations overwhelmingly preferred Kate. Social media buzzed whenever the two women appeared together. Body language experts analyzed their interactions. Fashion magazines compared their outfits. The monarchy hadn't seen such interest since Diana's time. Behind palace walls, the situation grew more complex. Camilla had her own loyal staff, people who had worked with her for years. They formed a tight circle around the queen consort. Kate built her own team, choosing advisors who understood modern communication. The two groups rarely mixed. They held separate meetings, planned different strategies, and competed for the king's attention. Charles found himself in an impossible position. He loved his wife deeply. Camilla had stood by him through scandals and criticism. She understood him in ways few people did. But he also recognized Kate's importance to the monarchy's future. She brought fresh energy to ancient traditions. She made the royal family seem accessible and relatable. Most importantly, she was raising the future king. The breaking point came during a state visit from the Japanese emperor. Both women wanted to host a cultural exhibition at the palace. Camilla envisioned a traditional tea ceremony in the palace gardens. Kate proposed an innovative fusion of British and Japanese youth arts. The planning committees clashed. Dates were double-booked. Venues were disputed. The press caught wind of the conflict. Private secretaries worked overtime to manage the crisis. He met with Commonwealth representatives who shared international perspectives. He even had long phone conversations with his siblings, Princess and Prince Edward. Everyone had opinions, but the decision rested with him alone. The king also spent hours reviewing public engagement statistics. Kate's events drew larger crowds. Her charities raised more money. Her social media posts reached millions of young people. The numbers told a clear story. If the monarchy wanted to survive and thrive, it needed to embrace change. It needed to connect with younger generations who would determine its future. Meanwhile, both women continued their royal duties. They smiled for cameras and waved at crowds. They attended charity galas and open hospitals. But everyone noticed the careful choreography. They were never scheduled for the same events. They arrived at different times for family gatherings. The palace worked hard to keep them apart. George, Charlotte, and Louis felt the tension too. The young royals loved their grandmother Camilla, who spoiled them with treats and told funny stories. But they worried about their mother. Kate tried to shield them from palace politics, but children notice more than adults realize. George especially, as the eldest, sensed the undercurrents of conflict. Royal correspondents worked their sources desperately. They offered large sums for inside information. Former palace employees gave cryptic interviews. Everyone wanted to know what would happen next. Would Charles side with his wife or his daughter-in-law? Could the monarchy survive another public split? The questions multiplied daily. Some advisors suggested a solution borrowed from European monarchies. Perhaps Camilla could focus on cultural patronages while Kate handled charitable work. Maybe they could divide responsibilities geographically. But these proposals felt like temporary bandages on a deeper wound. The real issue wasn't about schedules or territories. It was about the future direction of the British monarchy. Charles spent sleepless nights considering his options. He walked through palace gardens in the early morning, thinking about his mother's legacy. Queen Elizabeth had held the monarchy together through decades of change. She had modernized carefully while preserving traditions. Now, he faced his own defining moment. His decision would shape the institution for generations. The announcement date approached. Palace staff prepared the Gold Room for a major gathering. Invitations went out to senior royals, government officials, and trusted media representatives. The guest list remained confidential, but rumors spread quickly. Something momentous was about to happen. The monarchy stood at a crossroads. On the morning of the announcement, London newspapers ran speculative headlines. Television crews gathered outside palace gates. Royal watchers from around the world tuned in online. Inside the palace, final preparations continued. Florists arranged massive bouquets. Caterers prepared elaborate refreshments. Security teams swept every corner of the building. Kate dressed carefully that morning. She chose a dress she had worn to successful events, hoping for good luck. Her hairdresser noticed her unusual quietness. Her private secretary reviewed talking points, though Kate barely listened. She knew that within hours, her position in the royal family would be clarified forever. Camilla also prepared with extra care. She selected jewelry with special meaning, pieces Charles had given her over the years. Her lady's maid noticed the queen consort's hands trembling slightly as she applied lipstick. Camilla had weathered many storms to reach this position. She wasn't ready to step back now. Guests began arriving at 3 o'clock. They gathered in small groups, speaking in hushed tones. Cabinet ministers mingled with dukes and duchesses. Ambassadors chatted with charity executives. Everyone pretended to know why they were there, but uncertainty filled the air. The palace had kept the agenda secret. William arrived with Kate, his hand protectively on her back. They greeted guests warmly, but avoided lengthy conversations. Harry had flown in from California, a sign of the announcement's importance. He stood apart from the others, watching the dynamics play out. Even he didn't know what his father planned to say. Camilla entered with her sister Annabelle and daughter Laura. She moved through the room like a queen, which of course she was. But something in her bearing seemed different. The supreme confidence of recent months had faded. She smiled and chatted, but her eyes kept moving, searching for clues in others' faces. As 4 o'clock approached, guests took their places. The room fell silent as palace officials closed the massive doors. Television cameras focused on the empty podium. Around the world, millions watched their screens. The British pound fluctuated on international markets. Everyone understood that this moment mattered. King Charles entered through a side door. He looked older than his years, the weight of decision etched on his face. He wore his naval uniform, medals gleaming under the lights. Behind him walked his private secretary, carrying a leather folder. The king approached the podium slowly, gathering his thoughts for the last time. The silence deepened. Even experienced politicians held their breath. Camilla sat very still, her face a mask of royal composure. Kate stood beside William, her chin raised slightly. The future of the monarchy hung in the balance. Charles cleared his throat and began to speak. "My lords, ladies, and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying the authority of his position. "The monarchy faces a new era. As sovereign, I must make decisions that secure our institution's future while honoring its past. Today, I announce a restructuring of royal duties that reflects our changing nation and commonwealth." He paused, looking directly at both women. The queen consort has served with distinction and dedication. Her commitment to charitable causes, particularly literacy and domestic violence prevention, has transformed countless lives. She will continue these vital works with my full support and the nation's gratitude. Camilla's expression didn't change, but those sitting nearby noticed her shoulders relax slightly. Charles continued, his voice growing stronger. "However, the monarchy must also embrace the future. It must connect with younger generations who will determine our relevance in decades to come." The room seemed to hold its collective breath. Charles turned his gaze to Kate. "The Princess of Wales has demonstrated extraordinary ability to bridge tradition and modernity. Her work in mental health, early childhood development, and environmental conservation points toward the monarchy's future direction." Kate's hands tightened on William's arm. This was the moment everyone had waited for. Charles took a deep breath before delivering his decision. "Therefore, I am creating a new position, Senior Working Royal and Special Representative to the Commonwealth. The Princess of Wales will assume this role immediately." Gasps echoed through the room. The position was unprecedented, placing Kate above all other royals except Charles himself in the working hierarchy. She would lead major state visits, represent the king at Commonwealth meetings, and oversee the monarchy's modernization efforts. It was more authority than anyone had expected. "This decision," Charles continued, "reflects not personal preference but institutional necessity. The monarchy must evolve to survive. It must speak to all generations, all backgrounds, all communities. The Princess of Wales has proven herself uniquely capable of this vital work." Camilla's face remained composed, but her knuckles whitened as she gripped her handbag. Years of waiting, decades of patience, and now this public repositioning. Yet she was too experienced to show disappointment. She had survived as Charles's mistress through Diana's reign. She would survive this too. The room erupted in whispers. Constitutional experts immediately began analyzing implications. Would this affect the line of succession? How would Commonwealth nations react? What did this mean for William's future role? Questions flew faster than answers could form. Charles raised his hand for silence. "The Queen Consort remains my partner, my advisor, my greatest support. Her position is secure and valued. But the monarchy requires different skills for different challenges. We must use all our resources wisely." He then did something unexpected. He stepped away from the podium and walked to where Kate stood. Taking her hand, he raised it slightly. "The Princess of Wales has my complete confidence and support. She will shape our institution for the 21st century and beyond." The symbolic gesture spoke louder than words. Photos of that moment would appear on every front page, in every news broadcast. The king had chosen the future over the past, youth over experience, popularity over precedence. It was a defining moment for his reign. Kate's response showed her diplomatic skills. She curtsied deeply to Charles, then turned and curtsied to Camilla. "Your Majesty's confidence honors me deeply. I look forward to working alongside Her Majesty the Queen Consort in service to crown and country." The gracious words helped ease the tension. Camilla managed a small smile and a nod, but everyone understood the new reality. Kate would be the face of the monarchy moving forward. She would stand beside Charles at major events. She would speak for the crown in ways Camilla never would. William's pride was evident to all who looked. His wife had not sought this elevation, but she had earned it through years of dedicated service. He knew the burden it would place on their family. More travel, more scrutiny, more pressure. But he also knew Kate's strength and determination. The announcement continued with practical details. Kate would have her own expanded office at Buckingham Palace. She would lead a new Royal Foundation initiative focusing on global mental health. She would undertake major tours to strengthen Commonwealth bonds. The role was substantial and significant. Press reaction was immediate and intense. Royal correspondents praised Charles's bold decision. Constitutional experts debated its implications. Social media exploded with support for Kate. Hashtags like hashtag Princess of Progress and hashtag Modern Monarchy trended globally. The public verdict was clear. In the following days, the palace machinery adjusted to the new reality. Staff members were reassigned. Offices were reorganized. Schedules were restructured. Kate threw herself into preparation, studying Commonwealth constitutions and diplomatic protocols. She met with ambassadors and high commissioners. She was determined to prove Charles's faith justified. Camilla, to her credit, handled the transition with dignity. She issued a statement supporting the restructuring. She appeared at events with Kate, showing unity. Behind closed doors, the disappointment must have stung. But she was too wise to fight a battle she had already lost. The decision's impact rippled beyond Britain. Commonwealth nations welcomed Kate's appointment enthusiastically. Young leaders saw her as someone who understood modern challenges. Diplomats appreciated her ability to connect across cultures. The monarchy's soft power increased significantly. Charles watched the transition with mixed emotions. He had hurt the woman he loved to save the institution he served. But leadership required difficult choices. His mother had taught him that the crown came first, always. Personal feelings were luxury kings couldn't afford. As weeks passed, the new structure proved successful. Kate's events drew record crowds. Her initiatives attracted major corporate sponsors. Her social media presence brought millions of young people into royal orbit. The monarchy's approval ratings reached historic highs. Charles's gamble had paid off. The relationship between Kate and Camilla evolved into professional cooperation. They would never be close friends, but they found ways to work together. They divided responsibilities clearly. They supported each other publicly. The monarchy presented a united front once more. Looking back, historians would mark this as the moment the British monarchy secured its future. By choosing adaptation over tradition, by elevating merit over precedence, Charles had given the institution new life. The decision that shocked a room full of dignitaries had saved a 1,000-year-old crown. Kate's journey from middle-class girl to senior royal was complete. But in many ways, her real work was just beginning. She carried the monarchy's hopes on her shoulders. She bore the weight of public expectation. Yet she faced these challenges with the same grace that had brought her to this moment. The gold room where the announcement was made became part of royal legend. Tour guides would point to the spot where Charles took Kate's hand. They would describe the shocked silence, the gasps of surprise, the moment when history shifted direction. It was the day a king chose the future, and the entire room went silent in shock. As the sun set over Buckingham Palace that historic day, two women contemplated their futures. One had lost a battle she thought she had won. The other had won a position she hadn't sought. Both understood that the monarchy was bigger than personal ambition. Both would serve in their own ways. The crown would endure, transformed but unbroken, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead.